Night danger. In the woods once more. I had to bathe myself in 30% DEET mosquito spray just to even come here and see you guys. All two of you. But I had to come out. I had to let the people know that Braunsteins, Brownstones, fog of war, pseudo-diplomacy wargame events are the future of sustaining a long-term and dynamic campaign world. I ran one on Saturday, and it was a remarkable amount of fun. B, the players seemed very invested, and they really enjoyed not getting along. It had to challenge their assumptions, because for once they were playing in their D&D world, but they were very actively playing against each other. And I'm hoping that maybe a couple more of these events will start making them think, I could act against the interests of the party when I'm adventuring at the player level. PvP doesn't have to stay at the patron level, at the Braunstein level. But we'll get there in the fullness of time. Lot to unlearn. We've been playing as a group for a long time, and the conventional playstyle has deep roots in our souls. I wanted to talk a little bit today, not about what happened at my Braunstein, because I wrote that fairly comprehensively on the blog, and to be very frank, if you care, you can read. Literacy is good for you. But no, I want to talk about the logistics of how I actually ran the game and how I made things move from turn to turn, because a lot of the after action reports or play reports that I'm seeing from Braunsteins, they cover the in-world events. They cover the activities of the players. They don't talk a lot about the adjudications of the DM, of the referee, of the judge, who's maintaining this fog of war and balancing all these activities. And I didn't have like a formal sheet. So here's what I did. I had a very mild system, to say the least. What I did is each player, before the game started, I handed them a sheet. It had the character's name, the resources, whether that was troops or spells or whatever, available to them. If they had key intel, I would include that on the sheet. But most importantly, I included alignment and 3 objectives. A major objective, the primary objective, which for the most part was what people work towards. A secondary objective, which was I conceived of as like a fail state, where if you couldn't make your primary objective in the last turn or two, you could try and make your secondary objective happen. And then a little bonus points thing, where like 10 points per dead orc or whatever. These scoring systems didn't end up mattering a lot at the end. At the end, the results were nebulous, and many people had met some or all of their conditions. And yet, what was interesting was the results that it produced. But the big thing is, I think including a point system is necessary. In the same way that XP motivates players to go into dungeons because they want to get the gold and the treasure, having points and an assumed winner, I think, is necessary to motivate the players to actually act against each other and not turtle up and just get along nicely and make everything go smooth. Because people are, especially if you're playing with friends, bringing out that competitive aggression in what is normally a very collaborative and social activity, D&D. Yeah, you need the incentives. You need hard incentives to make players act against each other. And so I give them a sheet that has all the information they need to start running the faction. And then I gave them a turn, one turn being from dawn to dawn, a 24-hour day, and index cards. And generally how it worked is, because it was a 3v1, 3 Imperial factions versus 1 big faction of orcs, the orc player mostly spent a lot of the day with me. I would go over and he would talk to me about what he was doing and stuff. And this made adjudicating his orders much easier because he had a lot of units and a lot of things to move around. And so he would talk to me about what he was doing, and he had a little miniature version of the map, and he'd point out where he was moving his troops and all this stuff. And then while we were off on the other side of the driveway, out in the sun doing this, the other 3 players would, who were all controlling human factions and were ostensibly working together for most of the day, they clustered up and worked out a plan together and talked about what they wanted to do. But before orders were resolved, I would meet with each human player one-on-one in case they were acting against their allies in some fashion. And a big thing about this was I met with each of them for at least a minute and a half. Just a real quick, are you doing anything? Is there anything I should know? And I met with each of them, even though most of the time they weren't acting directly against each other. Because if you wait for them to need your attention, you reveal their intentions to the other players. If every turn the 3 human factions turn in their orders to me and they get resolved, but then one turn comes along and a certain wizard says, "Oh, Mr. Referee, Mr. Night Danger, could I please talk to you for a quick moment before orders get resolved? I have a question." Immediately, suspicions are cast. But if I meet with each faction before orders are resolved, just for 60 seconds, this provides an outlet for preserving the fog of war. It preserves the mystery, because you just never know. And it came in handy too, as we were using chainmail, and none of us had ever played chainmail before. And so one player who was controlling the largest number of troops, he'd use that moment, not necessarily to scheme against his fellow man, but to just check for rules clarifications about the movement of troops or about formations and that sort of thing. And this was the general cycle. They'd break up, they'd make their plans, they'd talk to me about what they were going to be doing, hand their index cards, I would quickly look over the index cards, I resolve the actions. And I would resolve them by announcing out loud in front of everyone any resolutions or actions that were common knowledge, that everyone would be aware of. And then, when it came time to, before they break out and start scheming for the next turn, I might individually say, whisper to one or the other, say, "Hey, this is how that turned out. Hey, this is how that turned out." And move around. And that was basically it. It's this very nice procedure of breakout, scheme, cross-pollinate, discuss, check in with me very briefly, reveal orders, move things, resolve outcomes, like if troops came into contact, we'd get the minis on the board and play out the battle, and repeat. This I'm sure I could have been more concise but I am still averse to editing videos, and I am adverse to reading off a script. But I've kept it under 10 minutes, and I think that you are intelligent enough to focus for, 8.5 minutes now. This has been Night Danger in the woods with his best friend. Hey, look over here. Show them your face. Yeah. Living large, deep in mosquito country. And I'll see you guys next time.